an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering The Dark Tower, Book 7, The Dark Tower. Epilogue, Susanna in New York, and Coda found. Live read! In this episode, Miles and I discussed the fact that I was super right and that Eddie isn't really dead. And then we read the last one live on the air so that you guys can see my facial reactions.
Oh.
Welcome to Unspoiled.
I cannot wait. Can't believe we're here. I'm so excited about this.
Tony, Krista, Claire, Megan, everybody's flipping out in the comments over
They're
here. If you
losing
were a
their
patron,
shit.
you could be here too. So yeah, I know that this is technically a different Eddie, but I'm still going to count it.
It's Eddie Torin, specifically.
Yeah, all right, first of all, hi, I'm Natasha.
Hi, I'm Miles.
And if you're starting with the final episode and you don't know who we are, that's kind of on you, and I'm not really that worried about it.
Yeah. You've made some life choices that you might want to reevaluate.
So, yeah, so this chapter, like, as much as it was a little bit like, oh, okay, I guess we're doing this, and it felt like a bit of a cop-out, I was still fine with it.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think
like,
that's...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think that's the kind of... Not the right attitude, but, like, you know, I agree with you. It's kind of a cop-out, but it's fine.
It's the sort of thing that so much of what's happened so far has felt like unnecessarily... Brutal isn't even the right word. Just kind of pointless in terms of the deaths. That to bring them back, I'm not even going to say like, oh, there's no stakes now since we know that they can just be... Because I didn't feel the stakes when they died either.
Right.
So them coming back really doesn't bother me the way that it would if I had... Like, Jake is slightly different. But even him, he's died and come back twice before this. So, you know... With him also, I'm just kind of like, well, you know, there's a precedent there. And with Eddie, you know, I just wanted Susanna to be happy, frankly. So,
my only...
Good.
I guess, if I have a complaint about this section, it's that there's not enough of it. It would have been nice to actually see Jake, you know, actually say or do something. Like, he makes reference at the beginning of the Coda, which you'll hear momentarily, to the idea of where Oi was in there, and it'd be nice if we could have seen that, you know, just like a few different... Wait,
he says something about Oi? Eddie does?
No. I'm skipping ahead to the Coda real quick. I'm just letting you know there's a reference to Oi as part of that group later on. It's not a spoiler. It's not a thing, but you know, it would have been nice to see, like, the kind of the quartet get together without Roland in this other world. I liked that it wasn't a thing where... I liked that it wasn't a thing where Eddie looked at her and was like, I feel like I know you from somewhere. You know, and
I mean, that is kind of what it is, but it's like from a dream instead of just being like a love at first sight thing.
He was like, I've been here waiting for you. I'm pretty sure you're the one I'm here for. Like, it wasn't... Right. It wasn't some chance meeting where they look into, like, you know, end of movies and
He doesn't, like, accidentally back into her wheelchair while he's playing Frisbee or
Yes,
something.
exactly.
Yeah.
I also really like that there's a bit where Susanna thinks she needs to make a choice between turning the handle and going to Eddie and, like, holding on to Roland's gun. And the audience sit there going, like, no, lady, you made your choice. You went through the door. And then it turns out it's actually not a choice. She can't undo it.
That kind of bothered me, to be honest.
Oh, yeah?
The fact that in the end it wasn't really a choice. the fact that it's just, oh, you know what? This gun isn't going to work anyway. I guess I'll toss it. I was just kind of like, doesn't that take some of the gravity out of her making the choice?
I guess I just felt like she'd already made it.
I see what you mean, but there's a finality to her, like, leaving that part of herself behind, which is not what I felt like she was doing when she left Roland. I mean, frankly, when she left Roland, I don't know what she was doing, because she just decided she wasn't supposed to make it to the end, and that was supposed to be that, and I don't know where she got that, because King doesn't tell or explain anything that he feels like needs to happen when it needs to happen.
Right.
So, I don't know, the again, illusion of there being a choice and then there not really being a choice is like his bag for this whole series.
Yeah, I'm more okay with it this time, I think, just because the way I look at it, I almost see it as like, this is what she chose to have this life in another world. Her memories of being a gunslinger are going to fade. She's going to, hang out with this clean version of Eddie, whose brother is Jake and not Henry, which is great. And
that was a good fake out. I figured that it was Henry, but that like he'd be a better version of Henry,
right,
since Eddie seemed to be a better version of himself.
Right.
But it being Jake was a way better. I liked it. Obviously.
And like she could have that, or she could have stayed, right? Like she felt like she had to leave. She was having these dreams, and the dreams were saying, "Look at this. This is what you can have if you don't go to the tower." But certainly she could have, right?
Yes. I mean, she could, but the mainly my issue is that it seems to pop into her head that she's not supposed to make it to the end, like, separate from the dream. She doesn't understand the meaning of the dreams. And while now we know that this is actually a place that she winds up, I'm reading them, and I'm not aware that this is, like, a potential thing that she can have. So I don't know that she was aware of that either. If that's how she took it, it's not ever said.
True. Again, it's, I'm doing more work than I should have to do to make this work in my head. So
I'm getting that put on a t-shirt.
The Dark Tower.
Bestseller.
Do more work than you should have to.
To make this work in your head.
Yeah. Hey,
so,
you know what, Krista? You know what? Yes, but still.
She's talking about Sucker Punch for those who are not actually with us and don't know what the hell Miles is yelling about.
Krista is also a patron of Smash Fiction, and recently on Smash Fiction we did a bonus episode for our patrons where Claire Mulcairn and I talked about the film Sucker Punch, which Claire despises and I really like. And we had a really great conversation about it, and part of the conversation was, you have to do all this work to make Sucker Punch, like, make sense and be okay. And for me, one thing I said in that episode was, I was willing to do that work in the case of that film, because I felt like doing that work was the entire point of the film. Like, Sucker Punch is just a movie where it's like, here's some symbolism. Analyze it. Find the message. Because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all if you don't analyze it for symbolism. So for me, when a movie's like, I challenge you to discover what I'm actually about, I'm like, all right, I'm down.
Yeah, that feels like you're giving them a lot more credit than they deserved on that one. Listen, I'm not getting into a Sucker Punch discussion with you.
We're not doing it right now. Y'all can go become patrons.
Claire in the chat here says, I've been reading these books for 15 years and I still haven't deciphered them. Well, see, Claire, now I feel like you're giving this more credit than it deserves. You're doing a Miles right now, where using the word deciphered implies that there's like a deeper level to all of this, and I'm not sure that's true. I think that if you want it to be, then okay, and you have a right to interpret it that way. But assigning that intent to the authors and creators feels very generous.
I just want to say that it didn't take 15 years for me to watch Sucker Punch. That's all I'm going to say about that. I knocked that shit out in 2 hours.
Claire is saying there are many deeper levels. You just have to read all of King's works ever over and over. I'll pass. Okay. As long as we've established that in order to access that, it's something that I will never need to do or want to do, then sure.
Claire, live your truth. It's great. I'm not doing it.
So, and then there's a pretty cute moment where, first of all, he has the Merry Christmas hat. I was about to say the Happy Birthday hat. It's because I'm eating this awful Happy Birthday protein bar over here. And then she asks him if Ronald Reagan is president.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, what the fuck are you fucking talking about?
Yeah, that's good.
Actor? He has the, like, Doc Brown response.
Yeah. And he said the president was Gary Hart, which I'm sure...
Yeah, is this a person? Is this real?
Here.
You're gonna Wikipediaing this now?
Look it up right now? Here, I'll do it. Let's see.
And he says, you're kidding, right? She says, nope, I always thought you were the one who was kidding about Ronnie Reagan, Eddie.
Part of me still hopes we're still living in that dream world, and we'll wake up someday.
She says, I don't know what you mean, because she has this whole history with him, and he doesn't have that at all, which is, I think, a very unfair, like, unequal distribution of power in their relationship.
I mean, there definitely is. I like the line that's in there about, like, she ditches the gun, and, you know, it talks about how she was, like, moving away from the person she was and toward the woman she would become. And I dig that, like, it's all kind of fading in terms of her moving into this other life, but it's not totally gone, and they're kind of clued in. So at some point they're going to talk about it, right?
Right.
You know, I don't know.
I figure.
I kind of dig it. Yeah, Gary Hart totally... he was the front runner for the 1988 Democratic presidential nomination until he dropped out over allegations of an extramarital affair with Donna Rice.
Remember when that was enough to, like, sink your career? It's so weird.
No. I don't remember anything before 2016. It's all just a dream.
Those halcyon days.
I mean, my life is great. I know a lot of people don't have great lives, but mine is great.
Congratulations. Moving on.
Thank you.
And then he says, I've been dreaming of you for months now. I've been waiting for you. Listen, we don't know each other. This is crazy, but do you have a place to stay? And I love that because I'm assuming she's going to stay with him. And then when he's like, I know this is weird. And I'm like, oh yeah, from your perspective, it's super weird, huh?
Yeah.
Like, this isn't even like me and Owen meeting for the first time and me staying with him, even though we'd never met in person before. We had talked for months before. This is straight up, as far as I'm concerned, I've never laid eyes on you, but come live with me.
Except in a dream, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
I liked the... Huh?
No, sorry, go ahead.
Well, damn it, now I've lost it. I don't know what I was going to say.
I thought of you once upon a dream. I know you. I won't try that high note. That's right there. That gleam in your eye.
That gleam in your eye is so familiar a gleam. Anyway.
Yeah, I'd have to drop it down a whole octave, which is always just one of those awkward moments.
Yeah, it's not great. It's not a great look. But...
Krista just wrote in all caps, favorite Disney song ever.
I mean, I respect your opinion. It's wrong, but I respect it. The bit about, what do you think about, like, the melancholy that they've got going on? Because Susanna at one point is like, you know, it's going to be really nice for Eddie being able to do all these things again for the first time. But, like, in the back of my mind, I'll know that we've done it all before. And then she kind of like...
That's what I meant about, like, how unequal the power is here.
Well, but she kind of frames it as, like, you know, how sad for her that she has to go through it realizing that none of it's necessarily new. But then she kind of, like, slaps herself out of it and is like, wait a minute, this is, like, goddamn miracle. What am I going to do? Be unhappy about it? Which I appreciated. Mm-hmm. But I'm not sure... I don't know if I buy the melancholy of that, per se. But...
I buy it a little bit just in the weirdness of this kind of situation where you're getting them back, but it's not like that erases the loss of them that you had.
Yeah.
You know, and there's like a whole history there that she still has in terms of trauma and shit that she went through that he's just not going to understand the way that he would if he was the same Eddie. So there's a certain part of her that he can't connect to at all. Mm-hmm. And that, I know that there's an insinuation that she's going to forget a lot of what happened, but I almost feel like that's kind of unfair. Like, it's reminding me a little bit of like this theme in Westworld where it's like, you don't get to just take that away from somebody. That's not your choice, and she earned everything that she went through. So basically erasing it from her memory just feels super disrespectful in a way, and I really hope that's not actually what winds up happening.
That's true. She makes reference to, like, maybe we'll go work for the Tet Corporation, which I really like. Like, I want to read that book. Again, I really like the Tet Corporation, so...
Yeah, that's something that, like, doesn't interest me at all.
That's funny.
But it's not even the kind of thing that... There are certain things that don't interest me, and I can't understand why anybody would care. And that's something that... It doesn't interest me, but, like, I get it.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about this epilogue before we move on?
I'm just trying to think. Yeah, Torin. What's Torin?
Cal Tower's last name, which means tower, I think.
Right. All right, cool.
All right, are you ready for this?
Yeah, let's do this.
All right, so here we go. Here's my giant copy of the book right here.
Pull up a chair, ye children.
Oh, okay.
Get you some hot chocolate, Mitch Schlag.
The good kind.
Even though it's 110 degrees here, whatever.
Here we go. I've told my tale all the way to the end, and am satisfied. It was, I set my watch and warrant on it, the kind only a good god would save for last, full of monsters and marvels and voyaging here and there. I can stop now, put my pen down, and rest my weary hand, although perhaps not forever. The hand that tells the tales has a mind of its own, and a way of growing restless. I can close my eyes to Midworld and all that lies beyond Midworld. Yet some of you, who have provided the ears without which no tale can survive a single day, are likely not so willing. Some of you, like you, Natasha. I'm talking to you right now. You!
What?
Now listen to me. Listen to me. You are the grim, goal-oriented ones who will not believe that the joy is in the journey rather than the destination, no matter how many times it has been proven to you. You are the unfortunate ones who still get the lovemaking all confused with the paltry squirt that comes to end the lovemaking. The orgasm is, after all, God's way of telling us we finished, at least for the time being, and should go to sleep.
This is written by a man.
You are the cruel ones who deny the Grey Havens, where tired characters go to rest. You say you want to know how it all comes out. You say you want to follow Roland into the tower. You say that is what you paid your money for, the show you came to see. I hope most of you know better. Want better. I hope you came to hear the tale, and not just munch your way through the pages to the ending. For an ending, you only have to turn to the last page and see what is there writ upon. But endings are heartless. An ending is a closed door no man or Mani can open. I've written many, but most only for the same reason that I pull on my pants in the morning before leaving the bedroom, because it is the custom of the country. And so, my dear constant reader, I tell you this. You can stop here. You can let your last memory be of seeing Eddie, Susanna, and Jake in Central Park together again for the first time, listening to the children's choir sing What Child Is This? You can be content in the knowledge that sooner or later, Oi, probably a canine version with a long neck, odd gold-ringed eyes, and a bark that sometimes sounds eerily like speech, will also enter the picture. That's a pretty picture, isn't it? I think so. And pretty close to happily ever after, too. Close enough for government work, as Eddie would say. Should you go on, you will surely be disappointed. Perhaps even heartbroken. I have one key left on my belt. but all it opens is that final door, the one marked blah, blah, blah. Unfound, I think is what this means. The one marked unfound. Mm-hmm. It's in those symbols. What's behind it won't improve your love life, grow hair on your bald spot, or add 5 years to your natural span. Not even 5 minutes. There is no such thing as a happy ending. I never met a single one to equal Once Upon a Time. Endings are heartless. Ending is just another word for goodbye. 2.
No, we're done. He's right. Let's just put this out of its misery. I'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Jesus Christ, this dude just...
Oh.
Shut up for like a second. Oh my God.
Is shutting up free? I forget.
Shutting up is fucking free. It costs $0 to not be like this.
Oh. We were talking on the chat today about, like, do you think Natasha will like the ending? Maybe she will, maybe she won't. I went back to read it again, and I remembered that opening, and I was like, oh.
This is a guy who's, like, blaming the audience for not getting his work. And that is, you know, there are times when that's legitimate, where it's like, yeah, no, this shit just kind of goes over a lot of people's heads, and I can understand. No, this is a dude who's flattering himself a lot.
He just straight up said, you know, this is a really good story, isn't it? It's good. God, this book is great. It's like what God would have done. What a good God would have granted to end the series is this book.
I just don't know how he can arrange an entire series about somebody reaching the tower. And, like, you know, I'm on record saying that I don't need him to get to the tower because there's nothing that he can show me of the inside of that tower that would be satisfying. But you also called the book The Dark Tower. You called your series that, and that's the driving force. So having people want him to get there is not an unreasonable expectation. It's blaming the audience for that is the most backward, condescending, and inauthentic thing I can think of.
Like Claire is all caps raging against the machine down here.
She says it is a good book. Claire, false. Fake news.
So,
go on, please. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. She says, I've written many endings, but only for the same reason that I pull on my pants in the morning, because it's the custom of the country. Stephen, stories need endings. That's what makes them stories. You don't get to have one without an ending.
Did I not say how bad he is at endings? Like, I think we talked about that for a minute. So this is just him kind of admitting that he's telling on himself.
Yeah.
He's trying to act like it's endings that are the problem. No, dude, you're bad at them. That doesn't make them the problem. That's like a guy blaming the woman that he fucked for not enjoying the sex. That's on you.
I love how you
could do something.
He calls out fucking your love life here. If you don't like my endings, you must be really terrible at sex.
Yeah, and the idea that, oh, well, we're all just in it so that we can come. Yeah, well, you know, maybe dudes are. I don't know what to tell you.
All right.
But fine.
So,
go ahead.
Here's moving on to section 2. Would you still? Very well then, come. Do you hear me sigh? Here is the Dark Tower.
Shut up.
Here is the Dark Tower at the end of Endworld. See it, I beg. See it very well. Here is the Dark Tower at sunset. 3. He came to it with the oddest feeling of remembrance, what Susanna and Eddie called déjà vu. The roses of Can-Ka-No-Re opened before him in a path to the Dark Tower, the yellow suns deep in their cups seeming to regard him like eyes. and as he walked toward that gray-black column, Roland felt himself begin to slip from the world as he had always known it. He called the names of his friends and loved ones as he had always promised himself he would. Called them in the gloaming and with perfect force, for no longer was there any need to reserve energy with which to fight the tower's pull. To give in, finally, was the greatest relief of his life. He called the names of his compadres and amoras, and although each came from deeper in his heart, each seemed to have less business with the rest of him. His voice rolled away to the darkening red horizon, name upon name. He called Eddie's and Susanna's. He called Jake's, and last of all, he called his own. When the sound of it had died out, the blast of a great horn replied, not from the tower itself, but from the roses that lay in a carpet all around it. That horn was the voice of the roses, and cried him welcome with a kingly blast. In my dreams the horn was always mine, he thought. I should have known better, for mine was lost with Cuthbert at Jericho Hill. A voice whispered from above him. It would have been the work of 3 seconds to bend and pick it up. Even in the smoke and the death, 3 seconds. Time, Roland. It always comes back to that. That was, he thought, the voice of the beam, the one they had saved. If it spoke out of gratitude, it could have saved its breath, for what good were such words to him now? He remembered a line from Browning's poem, "One taste of the old times sets all to rights." Such had never been his experience. In his own, memories brought only sadness. They were the food of poets and fools, sweets that left a bitter aftertaste in the mouth and throat. Roland stopped for a moment, still 10 paces from the ghostwood door in the tower's base, letting the voice of the roses, that welcoming horn, echo away to nothing. The feeling of déjà vu was still strong, almost as though he had been here after all. And of course he had been. In 10,000 premonitory dreams, he looked up at the balcony where the Crimson King had stood, trying to defy Ka and bar his way. There, about 6 feet above the curtains that held the few remaining sneeches, the old lunatic had no other weapons after all, it seemed. He saw 2 red eyes floating in the darkening air.
I'm sorry. Can we back up?
Yeah, go for it.
This motherfucker! The unmitigated gall of this motherfucker! I can't believe the big brass basketballs on this guy! What? So now, at the very end, we're gonna be like, well, you know, he knew without knowing. Yeah, but he was wrong, though.
Right.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How many times has that happened then? How many times did we know without knowing why we knew, and then it turns out we were just wrong?
Oh, that's so good.
This is some bullshit.
It is indeed. Let's hear some more. He saw 2 red eyes floating in the darkening air, looking down at him with eternal hatred. From their backs, the thin silver of the optic nerves, now tinted red-orange with the light of the leaving sun, trailed away to nothing. The gunslinger supposed the Crimson King's eyes would remain up there forever, watching Can-Can-No-Ray while their owner wandered the world to which Patrick's eraser and enchanted artist's eye had sent him. Or, more likely, to the space between the worlds. Roland walked on to where the path ended at the steel-banded slab of black ghostwood. Upon it, a sigil that he now knew well was engraved 3/4 of the way up, and it is the unfound symbol. Here he laid 2 things, the last of his gunna, Aunt Talitha's cross, and his remaining 6-gun. When he stood up, he saw the first 2 hieroglyphics had faded away. Unfound had become found. He raised his hand as if to knock, but the door swung open of its own accord before he could touch it, revealing the bottom steps of an ascending spiral stairway. There was a sighing voice. "Welcome, Roland, thee of Eld." It was the tower's voice. This edifice was not stone at all, although it might look like stone. This was a living thing. Gan himself, likely, and the pulse he'd felt deep in his head, even thousands of miles from here, had always been Gan's beating life force. Kamala, gunslinger. Kamala, come. I was really hoping I'd be able to say that with a straight face. I was really, really hoping. I can't do it. I did it. And wafting out came the smell of alkali, bitter as tears. The smell of what? What exactly? Before he could place it, the odor was gone, leaving Roland to surmise he had imagined it. He stepped inside, and the song of the tower, which he had always heard, even in Gilead, where it had hidden in his mother's voice as she sang him her cradle songs, finally ceased.
You right there, mister?
Yeah, I'm good. Sorry, I almost threw up when I said Kamala. There was another sigh. The door swung shut with a boom, but he was not left in blackness. The light that remained was that of the shining spiral windows, mixed with the glow of sunset. Stone stairs, a passage just wide enough for one person, ascended. "Now comes Roland," he called, and the words seemed to spiral up into infinity. "Thee at the top, hear and make me welcome if you would. If you're my enemy, know that I come unarmed and mean no ill." He began to climb. 19 steps brought him to the first landing, and to each one thereafter. A door stood open here, and beyond it was a small, round room. The stones of its walls were carved with thousands of overlapping faces. Many he knew. One was the face of Calvin Tower, peeping slyly over the top of an open book.
Thank you for the demonstration. I didn't know what that looked like.
The faces looked at him, and he heard their murmuring. "Welcome, Roland, you of the many miles and many worlds. Welcome, thee of Gilead, thee of Eld." On the far side of the room was a door flanked by dark red swags traced with gold. About 6 feet up from the door, at the exact height of his eyes, was a small round window, little bigger than an outlaw's peek hole. There was a sweet smell, and this one he could identify. The bag of pine sachet his mother had placed first in his cradle, then later in his first real bed. It brought back those days with great clarity, as aromas always do. If any sense serves us as a time machine, it's that of smell. Which is true, incidentally.
I agree.
Then, like the bitter call of the alkali, it was gone. The room was unfurnished, but a single item lay on the floor. He advanced to it and picked it up. It was a small cedar clip, its bow wrapped in a bit of blue silk ribbon. He had seen such things long ago in Gilead, must once have worn one himself. When the Sawbones cut a newly arrived baby's umbilical cord, separating mother from child, such a clip was put on above the baby's navel, where it would stay until the remainder of the cord fell off, and the clip with it. The navel itself was called Tetka Kangan, in case you were wondering. The bit of silk on this one told that it had belonged to a boy. A girl's clip would have been wrapped with pink ribbon. Because this is still gender norm shit.
Gender norms. Mm-hmm.
'Twas my own, he thought. He regarded it a moment longer, fascinated, and then put it carefully back where it had been, where it belonged. When he stood up again, he saw a baby's face. "Can this be my darling Babbo? If you say so, let it be so," among the multitude of others. It was contorted, as if its first breath of air outside the womb had not been to its liking, already fouled with death. Soon it would pronounce judgment on its new situation with a squall that would echo throughout the apartments of Stephen and Gabrielle, causing those friends and servants who heard it to smile with relief. Only Martin Broadcloak would scowl. The birthing was done, and it had been a live birth, tell Gan and all the gods thank ye. There was an heir to the line of Eld, and thus there was still the barest outside chance that this world's rueful shuffle toward ruin might be reversed. Roland left that room, his sense of déjà vu stronger than ever. So was the sense that he had entered the body of Gan himself. He turned to the stairs and once more began to climb. 4. Another 19 steps took him to the second landing and the second room. Here bits of cloth were scattered across the circular floor. Roland had no question that they had once been an infant's clout, torn to shreds by a certain petulant interloper who had then gone out onto the balcony for a look back at the field of roses and found himself betaken.
Okay, wait. Okay, hold on.
Uh-huh.
What did he think they were? Infant clouts?
Yeah.
That the Red King tore up?
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
He was a creature of monumental slyness, full of evil wisdom, but in the end he had slipped, and now he would pay forever and ever.
Wait, so we don't get an explanation as to why he ripped them up?
I mean...
Okay, continue, I'm sorry.
If it was only a look he wanted, why did he bring his ammunition with him when he stepped out? Because it was his only gunna and slung over his back, whispered one of the faces carved into the curve of the wall. This was the face of Mordred. Roland saw no hatefulness there now, but only the lonely sadness of an abandoned child. That face was as lonesome as a train whistle on a moonless night. I'm sorry. That line always gets me because it sounds like someone with a really strong southern accent should be saying it. Like, that face is lonesome as a train whistle on a moonless night. Yeah. Sounds like Rogue from the 90s X-Men cartoon should say that line.
It reminds me, we're rewatching Community, and Dean is writing screenplays.
Yeah.
And that sounds like something he'd write in this, with this desk were a time desk that I may unlive my mistakes. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Fun. Train whistle on a moonless night. There had been no clip for Mordred's navel when he came into the world. Only the mother he had taken for his first meal. No clip, never in life, for Mordred had never been part of Gan's tet. No, not he. My red father would never go unarmed, whispered the stone boy. Not once he was away from his castle. He was mad, but never that mad. In this room was the smell of talc put on by his mother while he lay naked on a towel, fresh from his bath and playing with his newly discovered toes. She had soothed his skin with it, singing as she caressed him, "Baby bunting, baby dear, baby bring your basket here." This smell, too, was gone as quickly as it had come. Roland crossed to the little window, walking among the shredded bits of diaper, and looked out. The disembodied eyes sensed him and rolled over giddily to regard him. That gaze was poisonous with fury and loss. "Come out, Roland. Come out and face me 1-to-1, man-to-man. An eye for an eye, may it do ya." It's happening in his head, I think, is what the italics mean. It's not in quotes. "I think not," Roland said, "for I have more work to do. A little more, even yet." It was his last word to the Crimson King. Although the lunatic screamed thoughts after him, he screamed in vain, for Roland never looked back. He had more stairs to climb and more rooms to investigate on his way to the top. 5. On the third landing, he looked through the door and saw a corduroy dress that had no doubt been his when he'd been only a year old. Among the faces on this wall he saw that of his father, but as a much younger man. Later on, that face had become cruel. Events and responsibilities had turned it so. But not here. Here, Stephen Deschain's eyes were those of a man looking on something that pleases him more than anything else ever has or ever could. Here, Roland smelled a sweet and husky aroma he knew for the scent of his father's shaving soap. A phantom voice whispered, "Look, Gabby, look you, he's smiling at me, and he's got a new tooth." On the floor of the fourth room was the collar of his first dog, Ringo for short. He died when Roland was 3, which was something of a gift. A boy of 3 was still allowed to weep for a lost pet, even a boy with the blood of Eld in his veins. Here, the gunslinger that was smelled an odor that was wonderful but had no name, and knew it for the smell of the full earth sun in Ringo's fur. Perhaps 24 floors above Ringo's room was a scattering of breadcrumbs and a limp bundle of feathers that had once belonged to a hawk named David. No pet he, but certainly a friend. The first of Roland's many sacrifices to the Dark Tower. On one section of the wall, Roland saw David carved in flight, his stubby wings spread above all the gathered court of Gilead, Martin the Enchanter not least among them. And to the left of the door leading onto the balcony, David was carved again. Here his wings were folded as he fell upon court like a blind bullet, heedless of court's upraised stick. Old times. Old times and old crimes. Not far from court was the laughing face of the whore with whom the boy had sported that night. The smell in David's room was her perfume, cheap and sweet. As the gunslinger drew it in, he remembered touching the whore's pubic curls, and
such a romantic,
and was shocked to remember now what he had remembered then, as his fingers slid toward her sickly sweet cleft, being fresh out of his baby's bath, with his mother's hands upon him. He began to grow hard, and Roland fled that room in fear.
Stephen needs therapy. He has an uncomfortable relationship with sex, and he needs to get that looked at.
Give me 2 seconds. I need to light for a sec.
You guys. What is this?
Alright. Whoa, that made everything blue on my end, huh?
Yeah, you're very blue
That's
now.
That's crazy. I wonder if...
It doesn't matter. You can be blue.
Okay.
It's fine.
Alright. If you don't mind me being blue, I guess I'll be blue. 6. There was no more red to light his way now. Only the eldritch blue glow of the windows. Glass eyes that were alive. Glass eyes that looked upon the gunless intruder. Outside the Dark Tower, the roses of Cancano Ray had closed for another day. Part of his mind marveled that he should be here at all, that he had one by one surmounted the obstacles placed in his path, as dreadfully single-minded as ever. I'm like one of the old people's robots, he thought, one that will either accomplish the task for which it has been made, or beat itself to death trying. Another part of him was not surprised at all, however. This was the part that dreamed as the beams themselves must, and this darker self thought again of the horn that had fallen from Cuthbert's fingers, Cuthbert, who had gone to his death laughing. The horn that might to this very day lie where it had fallen on the rocky slope of Jericho Hill. And of course I've seen these rooms before. They're telling my life, after all. Indeed they were. Floor by floor and tale by tale, not to mention death by death. The rising rooms of the Dark Tower recounted Roland Deschain's life and quest. Each held its memento, each its signature aroma. Many times there was more than a single floor devoted to a single year, but there was always at least one. And after the 38th room, which is 19 doubled, do you not see it? He wished to look no more. This one contained the charred stake to which Susan Delgado had been bound. He did not enter, but looked at the face upon the wall. That much he owed her. "Roland, I love thee," Susan Delgado had screamed, and he knew it was the truth, for it was only her love that rendered her recognizable. And love or no love, in the end she had still burned. This is a place of death, he thought, and not just here. All these rooms, every floor. "Yes, gunslinger," whispered the voice of the tower, "but only because your life has made it so." After the 38th floor, Roland climbed faster. 7. Standing outside, Roland had judged the tower to be roughly 600 feet high. But as he peered into the 100th room, and then the 200th, he felt sure he must have climbed 8 times 600, which, Stephen, you can just say 4,800, it's fine. Anyway, soon he would be closing in on the mark of distance his friends from America side had called a mile. That was more floors than there could possibly be. No tower could be a mile high. But still he climbed until he was nearly running, yet never did he tire. It once crossed his mind that he'd never reach the top, that the Dark Tower was infinite in height as it was eternal in time. But after a moment's consideration, he rejected the idea, for it was his life the tower was telling, and while that life had been long, it had by no means been eternal. And as it had had a beginning, marked by the cedar clip and the bit of blue silk ribbon, so it would have an ending. Soon now, quite likely. The light he sensed behind his eyes was brighter now, and did not seem so blue. He passed a room containing Zoltan, the bird from the weed-eater's hut. He passed a room containing the atomic pump from the way station. He climbed more stairs, paused outside a room containing a dead lobstrosity, and by now the light he sensed was much brighter, and no longer blue. He was quite sure it was sunlight. Past twilight it might be, with Old Star and Old Mother shining from above the Dark Tower, but Roland was quite sure he was seeing or sensing sunlight.
Don't get distracted.
Sorry.
Focus.
He climbed on, without looking into any more of the rooms, without bothering to smell their aromas of the past. The stairwell narrowed until his shoulders nearly touched its curved stone sides. No songs now, unless the wind was a song, for he heard it soughing. Soughing? Soughing? S-O-U-G-H-I-N-G. I don't know that word. I was going to look it up and I forgot.
I think it maybe should be sighing and it's a typo?
Maybe. I don't know. He passed one final open door. Lying on the floor of the tiny room beyond it was a pad from which the face had been erased. All that remained were 2 red eyes glaring up. Thank you, Krista. I have reached the present. I have reached now. Yes, and there was sunlight. Kamala sunlight inside his eyes and waiting for him. It was hot and harsh upon his skin. The sound of the wind was louder, and that sound was also harsh, unforgiving. Roland looked at the stairs curving upward. Now his shoulders would touch the walls, for the passage was no wider than the sides of a coffin. 19 more stairs, and then the room at the top of the Dark Tower would be his. "I come," he called. "If ye hear me well. I come." He took the stairs one by one.
I'm not saying anything. I don't know why you're looking at me.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself. He took the stairs one by one, walking with his back straight and his head held up. The other rooms had been opened to his eye. The final one was closed off, his way blocked by a ghostwood door with a single word carved upon it. That word was Roland. He grasped the knob. It was engraved with a wild rose wound around a revolver, one of those great old guns from his father, and now lost forever. "Yet it will be yours again," whispered the voice of the tower and the voice of the roses. These voices were now one. "What do you mean?" To this there was no answer, but the knob turned beneath his hand, and perhaps that was an answer. Roland opened the door at the top of the Dark Tower. He saw and understood at once. the knowledge falling upon him in a hammer blow, hot as the sun of the desert that was the apotheosis of all deserts. How many times had he climbed these stairs, only to find himself peeled back, curved back, turned back, not to the beginning, when things might have been changed and time's curse lifted, but to that moment in the Mohane Desert when he had finally understood that his thoughtless, questionless quest would ultimately succeed. How many times had he traveled a loop like the one in the clip that had once pinched off his navel, his own Tet Ka Kangan? How many times would he travel it? "Oh no!" he screamed. "Please not again! Have pity! Have mercy!" The hands pulled him forward regardless. The hands of the tower knew no mercy. They were the hands of Gan, the hands of Ka, and they knew no mercy. He smelled alkali, bitter as tears. The desert beyond the door was white, blinding, waterless, without feature save for the faint cloudy haze of the mountains which sketched themselves on the horizon. The smell beneath the alkali was that of the devil grass, which brought sweet dreams, nightmares, death. But not for you, gunslinger, never for you. You darkle, you tinct. May I be brutally frank? You go on. And each time, you forget the last time. For you, each time is the first time. He made one final effort to draw back, hopeless. Ka was stronger. Roland of Gilead walked through the last door, the one he had always sought, the one he always found. It closed gently behind him. Get some water real quick. Alright. So yeah, the one he always sought, the one he always found. 8. The gun...
It's not over yet?
It's not over yet. Almost.
Alright.
Almost. We're getting there. We're nearly there. The gunslinger paused for a moment, swaying on his feet. He thought he'd almost passed out. It was the heat, of course, the damned heat. There was a wind, but it was dry and brought no relief. He took his water skin, judged how much was left by the heft of it, knew he shouldn't drink. Wasn't time to drink, and had to swallow anyway. For a moment he had felt he was somewhere else, in the tower itself mayhap. But of course the desert was tricky and full of mirages. The Dark Tower still lay thousands of wheels ahead. That sense of having climbed many stairs and looked into many rooms where many faces had looked back at him was already fading. I will reach it, he thought, squinting up at the pitiless sun. I swear on the name of my father that I will. And perhaps this time, if you get there, it will be different, a voice whispered. Surely the voice of desert delirium, for what other time had there ever been? He was what he was, and where he was. Just that. No more than that. No more. He had no sense of humor and little imagination, but he was steadfast. He was a gunslinger. And in his heart, well hidden, he still felt the bitter romance of the quest. You're the one who never changes, Court had told him once, and in his voice Roland could have sworn he heard fear, although why Court should have been afraid of him, a boy, Roland couldn't tell. It'll be your damnation, boy. You'll wear out 100 pairs of boots on your walk to hell. And Vanet. Those who do not learn from the past are condemned to repeat it. And his mother. Roland, must you always be so serious? Can you never rest? Yet the voice whispered it again. Different this time, mayhap different. And Roland did seem to smell something other than alkali and devil grass. He thought it might be flowers. He thought it might be roses. He shifted his gunna from one shoulder to the other, then touched the horn that rode on his belt behind the gun on his hip. On his right hip, I'm sorry. The ancient brass horn had once been blown by Arthur Eld himself, or so the story did say. Roland had given it to Cuthbert Allgood at Jericho Hill, and when Cuthbert fell, Roland had paused just long enough to pick it up again, knocking the death dust of that place from its throat. "This is your sigil," whispered the fading voice that bore with it the dusk-sweet scent of roses, the scent of home on a summer evening. Oh, lost! A stone, a rose, an unfound door. A stone, a rose, a door. "This is your promise that things may be different, Roland, that there may yet be rest, even salvation." A pause, and then, "If you stand, if you are true." He shook his head to clear it, thought of taking another sip of water, and dismissed the idea. Tonight, when he built his campfire over the bones of Walter's fire, then he would drink. As for now, he would resume his journey. Somewhere ahead was the Dark Tower. Closer, however, much closer, was the man. Was he a man? Was he really? Who could perhaps tell him how to get there? Roland would catch him, and when he did, that man would talk. Aye, yes, yar. Tell it on the mountain as you'd hear it in the valley. Walter would be caught, and Walter would talk. Roland touched the horn again, and its reality was oddly comforting, as if he had never touched it before. Time to get moving. The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed.
I could have done without 9. I feel like he didn't trust us to get it. 8 was fine. Ending it there was the perfect spot, and he just always does too much.
Oh, you mean that last section? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was 8, but yeah.
Just, and he heard a voice saying it'll be different this time. What do you mean this time? What could that do? No, we know. You just said it's fine. We get that. I really like this concept.
I like it too. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I'm really surprised. Because again, I don't know what I was expecting, but the whole idea of going into the tower didn't appeal to me because I just couldn't imagine what would be, it's the idea of it to us as it's been laid out is that it's the center of the universe kind of thing. Which maybe it still is, but maybe it's just different for each person. I don't love the way that he did it.
No.
I
have some issues.
Yeah. This is the thing about doing a live read is that it's hard to, know where to start because you haven't had time to really absorb it yet. But you go ahead with your issues. Go ahead.
So, I love... This is one of those things where it was like coming to the end of Harry Potter, as I've said before, I was like, alright, how the fuck are you going to land this thing? Because there's only, maybe 2 right ways to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And she did it, and I loved it. I came to the end of this chapter thinking, man, that was the way to end Dark Tower. But it could have been so much more impactful. Not just without all the filler shit with the Crimson King and Mordred, but one thing that I was thinking about when I reread it today is the horn. And the horn in this chapter is, for me, what makes it. If you don't have the horn, it's not a good ending. Because I really like the idea that... there's something... There's at least one thing different, right? Mm-hmm. That implies that he's not just caught in a constant thing.
Right.
Again, King over-explained it with the voice saying, maybe you can be different, But, I love him showing up and doing it all again, but having the horn this time. My issue is that the horn isn't built up at all. It's not an object that has... a whole lot of resonance within the story because we don't know that much about Jericho Hill. We don't really, the horn is kind of thrown in as an important thing in this chapter. Mm-hmm.
That's how I was when you said the important thing to me is the horn, and I was like, really? And once you explain it, I get it. But initially, that was my reaction because I just don't like, we don't know anything. The horn being so significant there felt weird as a reader after 7 books that it doesn't mean what it does to Roland to the reader.
Right.
Which I feel like it kind of should by now. You've had plenty of time.
And, like, God, I get that you're going to end the series with the same line that you started it with, but it would have been, that would have had so much more impact if you hadn't nerfed the fuck out of Walter and, like, done all this other shit. Like, it felt like he wrote this ending first, and it was the right ending, and then he went off and did this other shit and just, like, tacked this on at the end.
Yeah, it's really weird for me to, like what he did here and hate everything that came before it.
It's very strange. It's very strange.
It's a weird... And, like... Sorry, I'm reading Claire. He's mentioned the horn before. I know he's mentioned it, but it doesn't mean... Yeah, it doesn't... I don't know. It doesn't mean that to me. And I feel like it should. It should be something that has gotten mentioned so many times with so much melancholy and regret so often that once that moment happens... It really is like this kind of emotional thing for us, but it's not.
Yeah, it would have been it would have been really nice if this had more connective tissue with the start of the book. If you're gonna link this back to Gunslinger, it would be nice if, like, this entire book didn't feel like you were going away from Gunslinger and everything that was established is important.
And I do really like the idea because, you know, my whole thing with not needing to see the inside of the tower was that the whole thing is, like, there... I don't feel like anything could be satisfying, and the whole thing is about Roland getting here. So this ending feels like exactly what I was saying. You know, it's not really about the tower in the end, and that's essentially what the lesson is for Roland, even though he does not know that yet.
Yeah, and we've talked before about the fact that Roland... you know, had discharged his duty after saving the beam at Algolciento and continued his quest for the Dark Tower out of sheer obsession. And so, a lot of speculation, a lot of people think that kind of the whole deal is that, like, Roland will stop living the loop when he doesn't make that choice. Because as soon as he goes to the Dark Tower, he's like, doomed at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't subscribe to that, though, personally.
Okay.
Just because there are enough clues in the text for me to indicate that... First of all, if this time... Okay, so we know now that Roland is living in a time loop, right? He does this over and over again. If this particular time wasn't super important, then what the fuck are we doing here? Like, I think this particular journey has to be, like, a really important journey for him. Like, different from the others in some way.
Maybe.
So...
I'm fine with it not being, but... I mean, it doesn't say either way, so it's fine.
Like I said, I think there's some clues in the text that are like, you know, when he touched the horn and it's like he had never touched it before, it made me feel like this, like him reliving it but having the horn this time had never happened before. Like, he learned something about, I don't know, friendship or something. Like,
I mean, kind of.
On this most recent run, that, like, so next time he gets there, he'll get to the top of the door of the tower and, like, it'll open and there'll be something else there. I don't know. But it could just be that, like, what he's learned is don't fucking go there. You don't need to. I don't know. I think that's kind of my take on it. But I think that
Claire is saying, this time was important because I'm going to assume it was the first time he actually gave a damn about his quartet because he was rewarded with the horn.
Something.
So he leveled up and he got a bonus.
Right. And again, once again, it's like, we are doing the work here. But
this is interesting. So Krista's saying it's purgatory, and that's not how I took this at all. Because I'm somebody who's always been... I'm very practical and frugal, and to me the idea of God creating a bunch of new souls every time people are born, if we believe in souls, has always seemed really ludicrous. And I figure that we're just recycled, probably, because we have to learn lessons. And if you only get one shot, that seems really lame and just kind of not efficient or helpful to anybody. So I've always believed that we are reincarnated somehow. And not necessarily, like, leveled up in, you know. But if we didn't learn a lesson, we're going back and we're learning it again until we fucking learn it. And so that's what I'm interpreting, not as purgatory, because that implies that it's like after death and you're stuck between. I think that this is life.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, there's so much stuff that goes unexplained here still. Like, he just throws out there that, like, when Roland was born, everybody was like, oh yes, great, the apocalypse is averted, or could be averted. Which is never really mentioned, and it's hard to tell if, like, Roland himself is super important, and that's why, you know, like, is he so important that the Dark Tower is actually just his life? Or would the Dark Tower show me my life if I entered it? You know?
Yeah, that's what I figured on that one.
It seems like, it just seems... Again, everything's so loose. It's like, is he some kind of chosen one? Like, what's going on here? I don't know. Personally, in terms of the reincarnation thing, I feel like... I don't know. I feel like everything is just matter and energy, and we're just the matter and energy that gets to be people for a while. And, like, probably after we die, we're going to get to be, like, dirt or, like, hydrogen for a long time, and then maybe later we'll get to be people again. But there's definitely not enough people to account for all the, you know, matter and energy in the world or the universe. So, I don't know. It's an interesting question, and again, like, I dig it because it, you know, it demands all this kind of discussion and it demands interpretation. But I don't feel like, I guess my issue with it is I don't feel like there's enough here. Like, we don't have all the pieces of the puzzle because I don't feel like he thought it through enough. Like, not to go back to Sucker Punch, but, like, things like that, where it's like, you know, like a movie like that where, at least for me, you get the feeling that the artist in question, like, really thought about everything and, like, really thought through all this different stuff. And this doesn't feel that way. This feels, you know, intentionally ended. Like, because it was time to end it. You know, it doesn't feel like it was all a plan from the beginning. All you shut up about Sucker Punch.
You're the one who keeps bringing it up.
That's
you don't have to do this to yourself.
It's an example.
You know, frankly, I don't have any pity for you because you keep just digging that hole.
I deserve none of that. That's for sure. But you know what I mean, though. It's like when you get the sense that, like, everything was really well crafted, and if there's a twist, and if there's time shit, like fucking Prisoner of Azkaban, better example. Like, that, the whole, like, time twist in that book feels like it was really well thought out. And, like, really well considered. And, you know, if you're making it in real life, it, like, actually is a circle that goes together and looks pretty. You know what I mean? Like, if you had a physical representation of it, that's going really weird. But the point is that this doesn't feel like something, like a big thing that he thought out, you know, very well. It feels like it's just how he decided to end it. Somebody in the comments said that they had read somewhere that, that, like, one of his sons, like, suggested the ending at the last minute, and that's how it got written. Which, I would believe it.
I mean, yeah, I'm just kind of wrapped up in this whole yeah, I really like the concept of this a lot. Like you said, I don't feel like there's an ending to this story that's satisfying. So not having an ending is a really smart backdoor. Like, King's like, yeah, you know what? You're right. I'm bad at endings, so I'm just not gonna.
Right. Which,
you know what? It's okay. I can't even be mad at you because you're at least like acknowledging your own shortcomings and kind of playing.
I mean, you could have done it without, like, berating people who like endings for 2 pages.
That's the main thing. That's the main thing that I have an issue with, is that he, like, has to go off on this, like, weird preachy thing first, and then he has to over-explain it after, too. He can't just let it speak for itself, which is a fundamental lack of trust in his reader, and I think he doesn't trust himself either.
He's got this...
And it's a weird spot to have that lack of trust and yet be really arrogant.
That's exactly what I was going to say, because simultaneously he's saying, look how great my work is, and then he's going like, but if you don't like it, fuck you, you're a Philistine.
And honestly, with this ending, with it turning out to be what it is, my concept of the Red King being Stephen is so much better. I should have, like, helped him out with this, because how much more interesting is that the Red King is fucking Stephen King, because King is in his name, and he's the one, like, writing the story, and he's kind of the one sending Stephen back through everything over and over again, because he's the one who wrote
That's a slam dunk. I don't know why you wouldn't do that. Like, why?
It just makes so much more sense, and it's such a more satisfying, like, villain to have it be the guy who you kind of thought was on your side, and maybe even is a little bit on your side, but you don't get why or what's happening. Like, I don't know. I just think that that's so much more... Because the Crimson King is nobody. Like, I just don't get what his purpose is, other than to be a vague threat for a bunch of books that doesn't pan out to anything. And then he's just a couple of floating eyes that yells in his head. Really? Because, like, they erased his mouth, and supposedly that stopped him from talking. But he waits until now to start screaming in Roland's head. Right. Even apparently he could do that the whole time, but he just didn't.
Well, here's my problem with this series, is that, like, I like the ending. You could have just gone here. Like, there's so much fucking filler that didn't matter. The whole thing with Susanna being pregnant, the whole thing with Mordred, the thing with the Crimson King, like, take all of that out, and it's fine.
I don't know what he's saying with Mordred. I really don't.
Just fine.
That, in particular, is just like, he felt like he had to, because he was trying to do a King Arthur allegory, which he didn't even do. That's the part that I find the most baffling, is that I thought, I was rolling my eyes like, oh, is this what we're doing? No, it isn't what we're doing. But we're still going to have this fucking thing.
Yeah.
Mordred is... It makes me so angry, everything that was sacrificed to make him part of the story, and then how ultimately completely irrelevant he is.
And it's just like all of that. You could have... I mean, I can see a world where this series lasts 5 or 6 books. Keep what you want. Keep the breakers if you want. Like, keep fucking them meeting Stephen King if you want them to, I guess. But, like... There's just so much filler, and like the introduction to the Coda makes me think that he just did it because it was cool. He's like, wow, that was a real fun romp, wasn't it, kids? There was a worm monster.
It just seems so self-conscious to me. You know, like, it feels like the kind of thing that you would do in a first novel.
Yeah.
You know, or in something in school, even. Yeah. Where you are trying to outsmart a teacher who you know is going to be real harsh with that grading by trying to insinuate that they're only going to be harsh because they don't really get it. And it's like, you know, then the teacher reads it and rolls their eyes and it's like, well, good try, buddy. Right. I just, the point in his career at which he wrote this, it's really upsetting. This is way too far along for him to be pulling this kind of shit. Well, and, you know,
David Hunt on the chat just said that in someone's first novel would never get published, and that's true. And it's like, it's so weird that, like, the only way this story gets written is if it's written by someone famous enough that it'll get published anyway. You know? And it's just, I don't know. So Tony says, your complaints are very valid, but it's important to keep in mind the series was very long and personal to him.
Does not make a difference.
I agree.
Like, honestly, Tony, I'm not even trying to, like, be a dick, but what relevance does that have? because it doesn't feel personal when you shit on everything you set up for 6 books.
Well, also, if it's personal, then don't publish it. If it's personal and it's bad...
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't understand that, like, keeping that in mind doesn't change anything a whit to me.
I think it's more of a thing where it's like, here's where he was coming from, but, like, I think there's so much, and I've said this before, so I'll keep it brief, so much of the story gets sacrificed for the sake of this personal narrative he's telling. And if that makes it mean more to him, great, it's his book, he gets to do what he wants, but, like, as a reader, I think it sucks. I think it sucks that so much of the story and so much of the characters got tossed out the window because he saw fucking red spiders and a dead chicken one time when he was a kid, and so he had to write Mordred into the story. Like, I just think that sucks.
I don't know what he was thinking. And, like, think if Susanna hadn't wound up getting pregnant, what more interesting shit could she have been up to?
Oh, God.
Like, how much more fascinating would everything be with her more involved, not distracted, not being lied to by everybody in her fucking life?
Ugh.
I mean, not a weird aside where she hangs out with a demon whose vagina gets described as a cleft, a sly cleft, or whatever the fuck he says.
That was the hooker that he had sex with after David died, but yes.
No. He says a cunning
Oh, God,
cleft.
yeah, I forgot.
Yeah. That's because we see the demon walking around naked in some sort of weird flash into the past.
Does love
sort
that
of thing.
word cleft. I remember.
Yeah, he's a big fan.
I said to Natasha after we recorded the episode where Mordred dies that I was really upset that we didn't talk about how much pooping there was in that chapter. Because there was so much fucking shitting and diarrhea in that chapter. And I was like, why? Why the word cleft? Why so much poop? That should be on a shirt right there.
Why the word cleft? Why so much poop? Yeah, I'm just like, see, and so this ending is just really basically a microcosm of this whole book, where I'm like, see, it was right there.
It was right
and
there.
And you just had to fuck it up. Like, he's so close, and he just keeps overdoing it, and keeps, like, just being fucking condescending. How do you talk down to your readers like this before embarking on this little, like, neat little twisty thing? He put me in the mindset of being ready to hate it even more than I already was.
Yeah, I know.
He did himself no favors with that. And I just don't understand who read this as an editor and was like, oh yeah, we're totally including that.
I said on the Facebook chat today, I was like, they're like, do you think Natasha's going to like this chapter? And I said the words, he's not doing himself any favors with this whiny-ass, fucking rambling-ass intro about how all the fans are assholes for wanting a fucking ending.
And, I mean, yeah, I'm just like, I just keep getting hung up on that because the concept of this ending, I think, is really smart and really one of the only endings I can at all imagine being satisfying. So it's so much more upsetting that I really liked it, and then he just had to just... And like you said, I really liked the thing with the horn and it being different. Like, just every little bit... And that's sort of like part of the idea behind reincarnation, too, is that you're learning the same lessons again, but you get a little bit more awareness next time.
Sure.
You understand just a little bit more. You have more empathy next time, so you can do better. Like...
It's very Eastern philosophy.
I think that's a really
right?
cool
like,
idea.
Yeah, like,
you know?
You move next time, you move a little higher up the pyramid or whatever.
And the idea that the tower is putting him through it, but also in doing so is kind of destroying itself in order to teach him because he has to save it.
Yeah.
That's kind of a weird, like, sacrifice that it's making on his behalf.
Well, that makes me think, that's one of the things that makes me think Roland is, like, super important. Like, he's a really...
I mean, Yeah, I think that, because I said that I think it would be your life if you went in the tower, and I still do think that, but I mean, the whole thing with his line and who he's supposed, I mean, that seems like it's significant. He has, like, superhuman powers to a degree.
Yeah.
Regarding, you know, gunslinger. And,
like, it's kind of a trade-off, like, the beam is like, all right, I'll help you learn a lesson about yourself, if you, like, do what you need to do and save me every time still.
Right.
But, yeah, I don't know. There are a lot of, like, the time loop coming into the end brings up a lot of different issues, and we can talk about more of them, like, when we do the wrap-up, I think. One thing I did want to mention to you, since we're finally at the end and I can say this, so the Dark Tower movie, which I still haven't seen, and which I don't know if you want to cover or not, but I don't have a whole lot of interest personally.
Not really.
But my understanding, and I was given this information by David Kehoe, who's unfortunately not here, I don't think, but because it's like 2:30 a.m. in Scotland right now. But part of the promotional material for the movie was apparently a picture of a horn and the words "last time around." The implication being that whatever changes they wanted to make for the movie, they're justified in making, because this is, like, way down the line of cycles, you know. So, like, 200 more times down the fucking, around the thing, and, like, Eddie and Susanna don't exist, and Roland is Idris Elba, you know. So, which, you know, I mean, it's a decent trade-off.
That's what happens when you level up.
It's a decent
trade-off. You become
trade-off.
Idris Elba. That seems only fair. I'll be Salma Hayek next time.
Yeah, so, interesting thing to note about the movie. You know, not so much of an adaptation as, like, kind of a sequel.
Interesting. Okay. That makes me a tiny bit more interested in seeing it, just because they kind of, like, lampshaded that, which is sort of awesome.
It's kind of cool. I still don't really care, to be honest. There's still talk of a TV show happening, I think.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that was even a thing.
It was, like, dead, and then it came back to life, and then it was dead again, and now
I
think
am
it's back.
so behind all of these books getting turned into TV shows rather than movies. Like, that's the way it should be.
I'm super into it.
And I'm really happy. And I'm very excited to see what the fuck they do with, like, Golden Compass. And I wish they'd make Harry Potter into a TV show, because that'd be so much better.
They will, eventually. Like, I have no doubt.
I think they will.
Somebody's gonna go back to that fucking money pit eventually.
And I will lose my goddamn mind when they announce that. I'm going to lose my shit. I will cover it for the podcast. I'm going to have to find somebody to cover it with me that isn't spoiled. Maybe have a 3 with Rashawn there, too. I don't know. But this, hypothetical thing will be great.
I'm going to tell Rashawn you said you wanted to have a 3-way with her.
She'll probably just be like...
Yeah.
Makes sense. That sounds right.
She'll be like, yeah. All right. Anything else? I mean, I'm thinking maybe you need some time to digest this before we get more into it. I think
so.
It's you had an unexpected reaction, I will say. Really thought it was going to be extreme in one direction or the other.
Okay.
But it was very similar to mine, which was like, wow, that was actually the right ending. I wish you hadn't taken so much of my fucking time to get there.
Once you read that, like, not again, and I was like, oh, that's something. Like, that hadn't even occurred to me, and I always like being caught by surprise. Because that's the thing about so much of what this series is Stephen King doing some weird shit, and me being like, I didn't even think of that. And a lot of the time, it's awesome, and I'm really excited about it. And so he managed to pull, like, and I thought I said, because there is, Owen has a friend over, Ashley, who I guess she, like, spoiled the ending for him and just told it because she didn't realize that he was even interested in reading it. And she didn't spoil me, obviously, but we were talking outside, and I was like, frankly, I'm so disgusted. I don't think there's anything that he can do to pull this out at this point. And I was a little wrong. He didn't redeem it, obviously. I'm still angry. But it makes so much more sense than what I expected. And it feels like at the last, he sort of like got back to what the heart of the story is, which is the fact that this is what Roland's whole journey is the thing. That the tower shouldn't be anything. I don't like it doesn't. Yeah, I just like that. That just makes so much more sense to me than anything. And the only alternative was to end the book with him walking towards it, which, while not satisfying with my limited ideas, was really the best option. So
there's a
yeah.
Have you ever read the children's book series, the Prydain or Prydain, I guess if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Chronicles? It's it's a 60s kids fantasy series, and it was one of the books, I guess two of the books really merged together, was the basis for that really terrible 1985 Disney movie, The Black Cauldron.
Oh, I never saw that.
It's really
but I've heard
weird.
about it a lot. Yeah.
The books are great. And there's a point in one of them, and, you know, I guess spoilers kind of for books that came out in the 60s. But the main character is looking for this... He's looking for, like, who he is and his heritage. And he hears about this magical item called the Mirror of Flynette. And that'll tell him what he wants to know. So he quests and he quests and he quests and he quests and he finally finds it, and it's a fucking puddle of water in a cave. And everybody's like, "What'd you see?" And he's like, "Me." You know,
How very Star Wars.
The lesson he takes from it is like, it doesn't matter who my parents were, that's who I am, which I enjoy. But
like Rey.
Huh? Sure, yeah, like
Rey.
But. I don't know. It reminds me a little bit of that, in that, like, I'm going to quest for this great thing, and what's the Dark Tower when I finally get there? Oh, it's just me. It's been me the whole time. I'm the only thing waiting for me at the end of this journey, and I can't handle it, so I have to go back and do it again.
Yeah, I mean, and that's how I ultimately feel about life, right? Is that we act like we're trying to strive towards something, but it's all an illusion. We're striving towards, like, everything that we imagine we want is all temporary, and none of it lasts, and none of it's guaranteed even when we get it, and none of it's guaranteed to make us happy when we get it, even if we think it's what we want. So, if that, like, it feels, I don't know, it just feels very right to me. I'm really surprised, Krista, that you don't like it. Although, you're Catholic, so you have a very beginning and end, like, idea of things, so that maybe makes sense.
She says she thinks this is a cop-out, which it kind of is, but, like, I feel like it works. Like, it...
Yeah, she's saying I wanted something more original, which surprises me, because I feel like it is original, but I don't know. Maybe there's a bunch of things that have done this and I just haven't come across them. But for me, this was a big surprise, so I feel like it is very original. I don't know.
The fact that he doesn't have to save Susan is gross. Yeah, kinda.
Why? Like, so we're saying that everything that was in the tower are memories that are unchangeable, and that he doesn't have to change any of that.
Well, that...
in order to change what happens
That's
after.
the other interesting thing, because we don't actually get to see any of the rooms beyond what the lobstrosity is the last thing we see. So we don't know how much of what he went through is fixed in the tower, and maybe it changes, different times, but like, but like, is there an Eddie room? Is there a Jake room? Is there a Susanna room? There's speculation that, like, the whole thing in the second book, like, with the drawing of the three, like, that he draws new people every time, except Jake, because Jake technically wasn't one of the three. But, I don't know, I'm not sure I really like that interpretation, but there's a lot of ways to go with it, so I think that it's a cop-out in that he didn't have to write the ending, and he didn't have to, he didn't have to worry that the ending was going to be a letdown to anybody except Krista, and people like Krista who like Insomnia for some reason. But
yeah, she's still going on in the chat about how Susan dying was totally Roland's fault, which I don't agree with either. So we just have a very different interpretation of a lot of these events, I think. He didn't go back for her because the pink ball lied to him. Like, it showed him selective things and fooled him into thinking that she was okay so that he would go on doing the thing that he was about to do.
As I recall, he did consciously make the choice. Like, he was like, goodbye, Susan, I must seek the Dark Tower, wasn't he? Wasn't that after he came out of the pink ball? I guess it lied to him about whether or not she would be okay.
Yeah, exactly. And she's saying, why would you trust the pink ball? He doesn't know anything. Like, why wouldn't you? If you were going, like, he saw the danger that she was in also through the ball, so that's still trusting it in a way.
Can I ask one question? There's something I didn't actually think of until just now, but now I'm going to be mad about it for a long time.
Okay.
Why the fuck didn't the Crimson King have the red orb?
This is another thing. I expected these orbs to play a much bigger part. Like, I thought there would be more of them, but we just have the pink one and the black one, and that's it. And apparently the black one gets killed by 9/11, which is that's
good job, Saudis. We needed you.
And Chris is yelling, so why would he look at it? Yeah, because he was a teenager, and because it like had power through he didn't even have to be touching it, and he could feel it. He touched it through the bag, and it started to enchant him. That shit was strong. But anyway, sorry. But yeah, I expected those to play a bigger part and for there to be something representing those in the tower.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's a lot. The other thing, of course, that we have to consider, just to reiterate, it's our last episode of the proper series anyway. There's a lot of connective tissue here that we aren't reading into. Like Claire said, the connected works, and apparently there's a bunch of comics that give you a ton of backstory about a lot of this stuff, and it's like, that is totally fine. I'm glad they add as much as they do, and if I had enough interest in making this all make sense, I would totally go out and do that. But to me, I don't think, like, the payoff for this series, that being the time loop, I think it's good. It's not good enough, and it's a little bit too little too late. It's a little bit just like, okay, great, you didn't actually, like, totally run your story into the ground. You managed to pull up the nose a little bit before you hit. It was still a fucking crash. And I'm just not really here for digging into it more. It doesn't, the nature of the collected world that we're living in with the story doesn't enthrall me enough.
Yeah, I think that's my problem, is that, if J.K. decided to write shit about Mooney, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs, I would be delighted to read other shit because you want to know more about this world that was so beautifully built. But in this case, it feels like he didn't build it that well, and so there's a bunch of weird lean-tos, like, holding the building up on the sides. And if you're feeling unstable in the main building, you don't feel like going into the lean-tos. Like, that just seems like a dangerous proposition. I'm eager to read more about a world that feels complete and well-handled.
Yeah.
And that is not how this world feels. So it doesn't... I don't have the confidence in him to waste my time going into other stuff, is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, it's just kind of, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I like the ending, but...
So I surprised everybody. How about that? I even joked around, what if I really like it, guys? What do you do? And I didn't really like it, but I liked it way better than I expected, so that's something.
And that's why when I was kind of like, when I first finished it, you were like, did you like it? And I'm like, yeah, but there's so much, you have to go through so much garbage to get there. It's unbelievable.
it's not really worth the... If we had gotten this last bit at the end of even, like, book 4...
Yeah.
You know, if we just skipped the Kala and everything, I'd have been fine. Because really, what did it matter? What did anything in the Kala or the Breakers or anything matter?
Honestly, I don't think couldn't the attempt, couldn't the Breakers be taken out? Couldn't the attempt to break the beam be taken out of the story?
I really think it could.
And
I like the concept again, but it does feel like a whole other story that he didn't invest enough time in up front, and then we just get the info dump from Roland when he's talking to Ben or whatever his name was. So yeah, I feel like that whole thing can just be scrapped.
It's like if it had been the same number of books, and like the other books had been really like.
I'm sorry, Claire just keeps arguing about adding, like, reading the other books, and David just wrote, if it's important to understand and appreciate the story, you need to put it in the story.
That's actually what I was about to say, is that, like, you could have taken out all this extra shit and included... I would have, like, if the 5th book had been another fucking flashback right after 4th, it's like, I wouldn't have been happy about it, but I would have read it. And it would, give me some more, give me more on the orbs, give me more on Rhea, give me more fucking Jericho Hill if you want to. And, like, tie that back into the journey they take without having to bring in all these, like, you spend so much time explaining all this shit, and then to go back to the original ending, if it wasn't the only way I could think of that I would have accepted to end the story, I would be offended. Because at the end, it's like, oh, I will find Walter. Was Walter actually a man? Was he really? And it's like, yes, he is. He's lame. He sucks.
Claire is saying it's like a scavenger hunt. Claire, you don't go to Domino's and they're like, go find the toppings for your pizza. You order pizza with the toppings on it. And that's what you get, because that's how it's supposed to go. If somebody was like, well, it'd be way better if you had the toppings, but you'd have to go and, like, find them. That's not... Kyle, no offense, but fuck that ain't how reading works. Kyle, you're really being very pithy tonight, and I appreciate it.
I mean, it's not, and you can't expect your fucking readership to do that. And if you are, like, there's been some talk tonight in this chat about, like, how frequently he addresses things to the constant reader, and it's like, dude, you can't just talk to that person. Like, you have to...
I mean, I think he's pretty well... I think he has a good reason to expect that to be the only type of reader that is still here. So, you know what? Go ahead, guy.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't... It's just... This is just so much... This is like having sex where you almost come. That's what this is like. Where it's like, oh, you almost... Oh! You were really close, and, like, I see what you were trying to do, and, like, it really was working for me, and then you had to do this other thing. Why did you stop? I told you I liked the thing, and you just changed up what you were doing. Why? And then they finish, and you're just like, yeah, it's fine. Go touch her. Like, that's what this is like.
That's a pretty good metaphor. That sucks. Yeah, I like that, Crystal. Or like a really shitty orgasm. Just like one that's like,
yeah.
It's there.
Yeah, I think there's... David Hunt, you don't appreciate my technique.
Oh my god, can you imagine if that happened during sex, and after all that happened, the dude was like, okay, look, if you were the right kind of person, you would be able to appreciate that my change right there was a work of art, okay?
There are very many men out there like that. So you saying that in this sort of like tone of how ridiculous would that be, I think every woman alive has met that guy.
Oh God, really?
And we'll send you his number.
Oh no, I'm so sorry.
Dudes who are just like, I did what I needed to do. I don't know what's your problem.
I don't understand people who share a gender with me a lot of the time. Can I just say that real quick? Like, what the fuck is wrong with... Guys, it's not hard. It's not difficult. You just have to, like...
Isn't it?
You just have to, like, give a fuck about someone who's not yourself. It's real easy. But...
Yeah, sorry, Tony's
I was
asking
gonna
me
say,
what my favorite book
Let's move
is.
off to sex right there.
I don't... Because he's saying 2. 2 is going into Eddie's body and Susanna's bodies, right?
Yeah, starts off at the beach, goes into Eddie and Susanna, brings them back.
And the Pusher.
And the Pusher does that whole thing.
That is pretty... And the third, how does that one...
Third?
Because I always want to say Drawing of the Three is the third book, but it's
Yeah.
the second book, but I hear 3 and I assume
Third
it's
is
the
Wastelands. It starts with them in the forest. They fight the big old bear. Later they bring Jake in, and we get the whole thing with Jake and his divided mind. And then they go to Lud, and all that thing happens, and then they go on the train. They get on Blaine.
I think it is 2.
Really? Interesting.
Just because all of that feels so tight to me. It's just so compact and so, like, gripping, and the idea of Roland trying to figure out this world while he's in this body that isn't his, and he's creeping everybody out is super funny.
I do enjoy
also,
that.
There's just a certain, like, physical comedy there, and then the third one, first of all, I will never forgive him for calling a group of people pubes. Why would you do that? Why would you ever, in your life, do that as a professional writer? What are you doing? You fucking jerk. Honestly. So that just takes away from it for me.
I think the third book's probably my favorite, but it's close.
I like a lot of it. But yeah, there's some stuff, and also the ending of it is real weird.
Yes. In my head, the third book ends like a quarter of the way to the fourth book. So, like, when I say The Wastelands is my favorite, I consider the beginning of Wizard and Glass to be a part of that book, because it fucking is.
Because you're doing that thing where it takes a lot of extra work in your brain to
Look,
make
I
this
have
work.
to do something. I've spent so much of my life reading these stupid books, alright? Like... I really like the Jake stuff in book 3, with his mind being all screwy and...
Yeah, I like that as well.
The Blaine...
And the haunted house and, like, the searches behind the doors, and that is
it's all really good.
Yeah.
But Drawing of the Three is very good. Out of curiosity, to follow up on this, is this last book still your least favorite after the ending?
Yes.
I would agree.
Yeah, easy. Because I still had hope with the others. I had that little spark of trust.
The only thing
anticipation.
The only thing I might put behind it is book 5, The Wolves of the Kala, because that book's just fucking boring.
Yeah. Yep. I'm not even going to go back on that train. That's about to, but what's the point? You all know.
See, Krista, you like Wolves of the Kala.
We are about to get cut off.
Oh, are we?
Yeah, we're like 10 minutes away from Crowdcast kicking us off because you get a max 2-hour allowance.
Shit. All right, well, we should wrap up then.
Yeah. So, Claire, I really like 5 because of Father Callahan and basically getting a sequel for Salem's Lot. Yeah, see, Claire? You see? You're really just proving our point. All right, guys. Well, thank you all for coming.
Yeah.
I certainly hope that you enjoyed it. That my expressions... I feel like if you didn't know me... Watching my expressions, you would feel like I was, like, turning it up for the camera, and it's totally... That's how I am. All of that was 100% just... He didn't have any other weapons? What the fucking fuck, guys?
I came across that again in the reread, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be fun.
What even is he doing, though?
We can't. We're
Why
gonna get
even
kicked off. We're gonna get kicked off. We can talk more about it another time.
I'm so angry.
Alright.
I love you guys.
Yeah, you guys are the best. Are we doing all the finishing stuff still on here, or do you want to leave first?
Why don't we leave? Well, alright, if we can do it quick,
quick,
because we've got about 7 minutes, so I think we can manage that. I'm not going to read new patrons, but I will just remind everybody that I have a shop up, unspoiledpodcast.com/shop, where you can buy the episodes of me and Rashawn talking about the Harry Potter movies, where you can purchase a commission from me, either a movie or an episode of a TV show, or 50 pages of a book. And they are all at different tiers. And go check that out. You can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/unspoiledpod, Twitter at unspoiledshow, Instagram at unspoiledpodcast. And in about 2 weeks, Rashawn and I are going to be live at LeakyCon.
Yeah.
And we are going to be having a get-together with anybody who wants to come. It will be outside of LeakyCon. So if you don't have tickets, but you want to meet us and hang out, this is the thing. It's going to be Friday the 10th, I believe it is. And we're going to aim for 7:30 p.m. So, guys, if you want to do, karaoke, get some drinks, have some food, that's where... we haven't picked the location yet because I don't really know Dallas well. But if you all have some suggestions, I'm all ears. And I feel like there's another thing that I'm forgetting, but I'm you know what it was? I guessed it.
Go ahead. No,
what?
Go ahead.
I guessed it on the Unscrupled Buffy episode of The Body. Probably the best Buffy episode ever. One of the best episodes of television ever. And y'all should listen to it because I think it was a really good episode. And it was interesting because there was 2 of us who had lost a parent and 1 who hadn't. And just the difference in our perspectives on that episode because of it. And so you should check that one out. Because that's if you haven't watched Buffy, just go ahead and just watch that one episode. Honestly. Go ahead. Just see what you think. I'm curious. Let's do an experiment.
Buffy's good shit.
All right. So, Miles,
there was
take it
some
away.
great jokes going on. Make Miles go fast. Everybody listen to Smash Fiction and read his blog that he hasn't updated. I will have you know that, in fact, the blog has not only been updated, it has been completely revamped. Thank you very much.
Surprise,
bitches! It is more now than just a science fiction blog. I've expanded it because I want to write about some other things. The most recent post is about professional wrestling, so if you don't like that, you might not like this, but there will be other content up on there in lots of other subject matter. I see you, Krista. So universesofthemind.com. Thank you for that.
That's a celebration for you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for the request, Tony.
Universesofthemind.com is the URL for that. Go check out Smash Fiction. Check out patreon.com/SmashFictionPodcast, Odyssey Storytelling Podcast, and once again, universesofthemind.com. Keep an eye out for all the content that I really hope will be coming out now. I'm not promising anything anymore. I've learned that lesson from George R. R. Martin. But there will hopefully be new content very soon. Wait, what else?
Krista's saying, and what else, Miles?
Missing?
What else? Ahem. I don't know. Did she guess on something with you?
I don't think so.
What are you watching?
I'm going to be watching Logan soon, guys. And I think Krista and I are going to talk about it on our own thing.
Have you not seen it?
I have not seen it yet. So,
oh, wow. That'll be
Sharon
something.
and I think, are going to watch it this week. And Krista and I are going to set up something whereby people can check out our conversation about it because she's been trying to get me to watch it forever. So, that's happening soon. Keep an eye on my social media for, and Unspoiled stuff for more information about that. It's not going to be an Unspoiled branded thing, but it'll be our thing.
That'll be fun.
It'll be good.
I'm curious about what you think of it.
Me too.
All right. Well, we're still under time.
Woo!
High five. I missed your high five. Even I can just tell virtually even that we did not connect. That didn't happen. All right, guys. Well, thank you all so much for coming again.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed yourselves. And thank you all for being patrons, because everybody here is a patron, and you're great, and you're special, and you're better than other people. And I hope that you know that. And remember that you're better than other people when Stephen King tries to talk down to you. Be like, hey, guy, you can be a dick, but I'm an unspoiled patron, so maybe just check yourself.
You guys are the best. Thank you so much for being here and listening.
Mwah! I love you. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Unspoiled Network podcast.